Today we're talking about how you can conquer a country, not with tanks and soldiers, but with something a lot quieter, a balance sheet. We're diving into the world of the sovereign debt trap.
Our story starts not too long ago, right in the middle of the global pandemic, when one country just couldn't pay its bills. And that moment, well, it was like the first domino in a very, very long line. So, yeah, back in 2020, a country defaulted. But what made this so interesting wasn't just that it happened. It was who they couldn't pay back. Now, you might be thinking, who was it? One of the big Western banks? Maybe the World Bank? Nope. The answer actually points to a huge shift in how global power really works these days. The country was Zambia, and the creditor it couldn't pay back? A Chinese state-owned company. And this wasn't just some small loan. They had quietly become Zambia's single biggest creditor. This was a really big deal. And just so we're all on the same page, a sovereign default is pretty simple. It's when a country's government just can't repay its debt. Zambia's default was huge. It was the first in Africa during the pandemic. But as we're about to see, it was really just a symptom of a much, much bigger story.
All right, let's zoom out from Zambia for a second and look at the whole picture. Because this isn't just about one loan. It's about a massive global strategy funded by an incredible amount of money.
Take a look at this number. $170 billion. That's how much China has poured into African nations alone since just the year 2000. But this isn't just a friendly loan. You could call it a strategic investment, and it comes with some very specific strings attached.
So what are these strings? Well, the deal is usually pretty straightforward. Step 1, we'll give you the money to build that shiny new port, or that railway, or those highways you need. Step 2, but you have to use our construction companies, our materials, and often even our workers to get it done. And then comes the most important part, step 3. When it's all built, the debt is 100% yours.
And this whole model leads to one giant critical question. What happens when a country can't pay the money back? The answer can be pretty dramatic. It can mean losing something way more valuable than just money. For a perfect example of this, let's look at Sri Lanka. They were deep in debt to China for a huge port project, and then the bills started coming due, and they just couldn't pay. They had to make a choice, and believe me, none of the options were good.
So in 2017, with no way to pay, Sri Lanka did the unthinkable. It handed over control of its massive strategic Hambantota port to China. And get this, the deal wasn't for a few years. It was a 99-year lease. That's basically giving China control of your sovereign territory for a century.
And this is the punchline. A country's key strategic asset was effectively seized. Not with an army, not with soldiers, but with a spreadsheet. Not by invasion, but by invoice.
But hang on. Right when you think you have this story figured out, there's a twist. Because this isn't just about China. This playbook, using debt as leverage, it's actually a lot older and a lot more common than you might think.
Yeah, that's right. This whole strategy of using massive loans to gain influence and control, it's not new at all. And China, for all its scale, is definitely not the only one playing the game.
In fact, if you go all the way back to the 1980s, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has been offering rescue loans to struggling countries. And guess what? Just like those big infrastructure deals, these loans also come with some very specific and very demanding conditions. So let's just compare them side by side. On one side, you have China's model. We build your infrastructure with our companies, and the collateral is a physical asset, like your port. On the other side, you have the IMF's model. The loan is still there, but the collateral is your national policy. You have to agree to cut social spending, privatize your state-owned companies, and open up your markets.
So here's the thing. The methods are different, for sure. One takes your physical assets, the other takes control of your economic policy. But the fundamental result? It's exactly the same. Debt is used as a tool, as leverage, to get power over a sovereign nation.
And that brings us to the real heart of this whole thing. What is the true nature of this trap we're talking about?
At the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is this. The sovereign debt trap, it's not about capitalism versus communism. It's not about East versus West. It doesn't fly the flag of any one nation. It's a mechanism. It's a tool of finance.
And the nature of this trap, it's totally impersonal. It's not driven by some grand geopolitical scheme. It's driven by the cold, relentless mathematics of compound interest. And you know what its greatest weapon is? Patience. It can wait for years, even decades, for that debt to mature, and for the leverage to become absolute.
So, if this trap isn't really about any one nation, if it's just a feature of the system itself, that leaves us with one last question. When the trap has no flag, who's really winning? That's something to think about as the global balance of power keeps on shifting.